My name is Elena Ward. I'm 31 years old. A portrait photographer. The kind who freezes moments for people who pretend their lives are perfect. I live in a small coastal town called Havenport, a place that smells of sea salt and secrets. The kind of town where everyone waves at you, but their eyes follow you home. I thought I had built a quiet, ordinary life. Morning coffee at the corner cafe. A studio filled with fading light and soft jazz. And a fiancé, Daniel, who said all the right words. But Havenport has a way of revealing what people try so hard to hide. And I was about to find out just how cruel that revelation could be. It started with a message. A simple one. But sometimes it's the smallest things that rip your life apart. You might want to check your email. People are talking. The sender was unknown. No subject line. Just those 10 words. I remember the chill that went down my spine as I clicked. I wasn't prepared for what I saw. There were photos, not of me, but of Daniel. Laughing, holding another woman. Her hand tracing his jaw like it belonged there, and below them. A thread of comments. Whispers turned to poison. Screenshots of private messages, accusations, speculation, every detail of a relationship I never knew existed, broadcast to the town's gossip forums. And somehow, my name was in it too. They said I was the fool. The one who must have known. The woman who ignored the truth because it was convenient. I closed the laptop and stared out my studio window. The ocean looked calm that day. Deceptively calm. But my heart was storming. When I confronted Daniel, he didn't deny it. He didn't even flinch. Just sighed, rubbing his temples like I was the problem. "Elena, you're overreacting," he said. "It was a mistake. A private thing. No one was supposed to see it. No one was supposed to see it." That's what mattered to him. Not the betrayal, not the lies, just the exposure. I remember how his voice cracked, not from guilt, but from fear of being judged. For once, he knew what it felt like to be seen for who he really was. That night, I walked along the pier, letting the cold air bite my skin. The sea was dark, the waves loud enough to drown my thoughts. And yet there was one thing I couldn't silence. Why me? What had I done to deserve being the town's spectacle? I gave. I trusted. I loved quietly. But Havenport thrives on silence. It feeds on what people don't say out loud. And that's when I realized. My story wasn't just about Daniel, there were others. People who smiled in my face, then whispered behind my back. Friends, family, clients who said they admired my art, but secretly enjoyed my humiliation. I started seeing it in their eyes. The pity, the amusement, the quiet judgment they'd always carried, now justified by my shame. They thought I'd crumble, disappear, but I didn't. I listened. I watched. And I waited, because what they didn't know was that I wasn't just collecting photographs anymore. I was collecting truths. The kind that could destroy reputations, careers, marriages. They'd all played their part in my downfall. And soon, they'd know what it felt like to have their secrets made public. That night, I deleted Daniel's number. And as the sea wind tangled my hair, I made myself a quiet promise. I would make them all remember my name, not as a victim, but as a storm they never saw coming. And when it was over, they would finally learn what it felt like to be silent and judged. The morning after the leak, Havenport felt different, quieter, but it wasn't peace. It was the kind of silence that comes right before a storm, when people already know what's happened. And they're just waiting to see what you'll do about it. I walked into my studio as I always did. Same creaky wooden floorboards, same scent of salt and old coffee. But my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications, messages, missed calls. Everyone had something to say now, My mother's voice was the first I heard. She didn't even bother with hello. "Elena," she said, sharp as glass. "What on earth have you done?" Done. That word hung heavy in the air. Like I was the one who'd been caught cheating. "Mom," I whispered. "I didn't— Oh, don't start that. I warned you about Daniel. You never listen." She sighed, the kind of sigh that carried judgment and exhaustion. "Now everyone's talking. The church ladies called this morning. Do you know how humiliating that is?" I could almost hear her pacing through the kitchen, rearranging her worry into blame. It was always like this. When something broke, it was my fault for not holding it tighter. After hanging up, I sat in my studio for hours, staring at the camera on my desk. That lens, it had seen hundreds of faces. Couples in love. Families pretending to be perfect. I used to think I could capture truth through it, but truth wasn't something people wanted to see. They wanted beauty, illusion, and now I was the one whose illusion had shattered. My assistant Mara came in later that afternoon. Her eyes were wide, full of pity, wrapped in professionalism. "Elena, maybe you should take a few days off," she said gently. "People are being cruel online. It's not fair." I nodded, pretending to agree. But deep down, I wasn't hurt by the cruelty. I was studying it, because every name that appeared in those comment threads, every fake friend sharing a joke at my expense, I was writing them down. They were showing me exactly who they were. That evening, I went to the grocery store, just to feel normal again. But Havenport wouldn't allow that. The whispers started before I even reached the produce aisle. 2 women from my yoga class, one of Daniel's coworkers, even Mrs. Harlow, the elderly woman who once brought me cookies after my father died, wouldn't meet my eyes. I could feel their stares like needles, judging, probing, feeding on the scandal. And yet, none of them knew the truth. None of them knew that Daniel's affair wasn't the only secret hidden beneath Havenport's polite smiles. Later that night, I scrolled through the forums again. There it was, a new thread. Local photographer's perfect life unravels. Perfect life. As if they ever cared before. The comments were worse this time. Maybe she deserved it. She always looked smug. Daniel finally realized she was boring. It's strange how quickly people turn on you. How easy it is for them to rewrite your story once you've lost control of the narrative. I stared at those words until they stopped hurting. Until I could look at them without flinching. Then, I started saving screenshots. Every username. Every cruel comment. Every fake sympathizer, because I knew something they didn't. That truth, once exposed, doesn't vanish. It lingers. And when you learn how to aim it, it can burn. 2 days later, I saw Daniel again. He came to my studio unannounced. Still in his pressed suit, hair perfect, face rehearsed. "Elena, can we talk?" he said, voice low and diplomatic, like he was negotiating damage control. "There's nothing to say," I replied, keeping my camera between us like a shield. He stepped closer. "This wasn't supposed to go public. You know how gossip spreads here. I'm sorry, okay?" Sorry, that word. It sounded so small compared to the wreckage he left behind. I met his eyes, and for the first time, I didn't see the man I loved. I saw a coward. Someone terrified not of losing me, but of losing face. "You're not sorry for what you did," I said quietly. "You're sorry everyone found out." He opened his mouth to respond, but stopped when I lifted the camera. For a second, he froze, unsure if I was about to take a picture or throw it at him. I smiled. "I capture moments for a living, Daniel," I whispered. "And this one? This is the moment you realize you're not the victim." He left without another word, and when the door closed behind him, something inside me shifted. Something small, but powerful. The fear was gone. In its place was clarity. That night, I took out my notebook, the one I used for client schedules, and turned to a blank page. At the top, I wrote in black ink, "People who helped ruin me." Underneath, I started listing names, friends, relatives, Daniel, his mistress. Every person who whispered, commented, or pretended to comfort me while feeding the fire. I didn't know what my revenge would look like yet. But I knew this. I wouldn't stay silent anymore. They wanted a story to gossip about, so I'd give them one. But this time I'd be the one holding the pen. Days passed, but the noise never faded. It became a rhythm beneath everything. The hum of whispers, the buzz of notifications, the quiet, poisonous laughter that followed me wherever I went. I'd learned to move through it. Smile when I needed to, disappear when I didn't. But beneath the stillness, I was hunting. It started with a pattern. I noticed that every post, every rumor, every update about me seemed to surface from the same anonymous account. Truths. Havenport Truths. Our town's little digital confession booth. Everyone read it. No one admitted to running it, but the timing of the posts was too deliberate, too personal. It wasn't a stranger. It had to be someone close. Someone who knew my private moments. One afternoon, as I was sorting through old memory cards, I came across a folder I didn't recognize. It was labeled Untitled 11. Inside were portraits I'd taken during a charity event. Smiling faces, champagne flutes, twinkling lights. I almost deleted it until one image caught my attention. Daniel. And beside him, the woman from the leaked photos. Clara. But this photo was different. It wasn't intimate. It was candid. Behind them, blurred but visible, stood someone I recognized instantly. Mara, my assistant. Her face was turned toward them, her smile. Knowing, I felt my stomach twist. Mara had access to everything. My emails, my schedule, my cloud folders, even my personal photo archives, and she'd been with me the day the leak started. The next morning, I asked her to come in early. She arrived with her usual friendly smile and a latte in hand. "Rough week, huh?" she said softly. "People can be awful." I studied her carefully. Her voice didn't shake. Her eyes didn't flinch. "Mara," I said, my tone calm, "did you post anything about me online?" Her smile faltered for a split second, almost invisible, before she forced it back. "What? No. Why would I do that?" I watched her fingers tighten around the coffee cup. The same fingers that managed all my passwords. The same hands that helped me build this studio. "I don't know," I said quietly. "Maybe someone offered you something," she laughed nervously. "You think someone paid me?" "Elena, that's insane." But I could see it in her eyes now. Guilt, buried deep. It wasn't about money. It was personal. After she left, I went digging. Emails, file logs, metadata. I traced the anonymous uploads from my computer to a local IP address. The same address that had accessed my shared drive 2 days before the leak. Mara's. That night I sat alone in the dark, staring at the evidence. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out my trust and left nothing but ache. She'd betrayed me. Not just as an employee, but as someone I once called a friend. I thought Daniel's betrayal was the worst I'd ever endure. But Mara's cut deeper. Because she smiled while she watched me fall. I needed to be sure. So I set a trap. The next morning, I uploaded a fake document to my shared drive. It was titled Statement Draft, Legal Response. Inside, it contained nothing but a single line of text. "Whoever reads this, I know it's you." Within an hour, the document was opened. And an hour later, a new post appeared on Fond Truths. "Looks like Elena's planning to sue. Guess she's desperate." My heart pounded. I finally had her, but I didn't rush. Revenge, I realized, was an art form, and art required patience. That night, I drafted a message. "Clara, we need to talk." "I know everything." I met Clara 2 days later at a cafe outside of town. She looked nervous, glancing around like she expected Daniel to appear. "Elena," she said, voice trembling. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Her hands fidgeted with a napkin, twisting it until it tore. I stayed quiet. Let her fill the silence. "It was Mara," she whispered finally. "She told me Daniel was cheating on me. Said she could prove it. She showed me photos, your photos. I didn't even know she worked for you." My throat went dry. Mara hadn't just leaked my life, she'd manipulated both of us. Why would she do that? I asked softly. Clara looked up, her expression broken. She said you didn't deserve the life you had, that everything came too easily for you. There it was. The jealousy, the rot that had been festering behind Mara's soft smiles and polite words. When I drove home that night, the rain was falling hard, like the sky was washing the town clean of its pretense. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the raindrops streaking across the windshield. I should have felt angry, raging, ready to destroy her, but instead I felt still. Because finally the picture was complete, Mara had started the fire. Daniel and Clara had fed it. And the town, all of them, had watched it burn. But now I held the match. People in Havenport thought they knew my story. They thought they'd seen the truth. They had no idea that I was just getting started, because when their secrets became public, they would finally learn what it felt like to be silent and judged. With the moment you stop reacting and start observing, for days I said nothing. No more posts, no tears, no defenses. Let them think I was broken. Let them believe I'd disappeared into my shame. While they watched me fade, I was watching them closer than ever. I began with Mara. Every movement, every login, every person she whispered to. I mapped her digital footprints like a hunter tracing patterns in the snow. Each night I pieced it together, the connections, the motives, the lies. It was almost beautiful, the way deceit formed such delicate symmetry. I didn't just want to ruin her. I wanted her to understand the weight of exposure, to feel what it was like to have your truth turned into entertainment. I created a new account, anonymous, harmless looking. And I started feeding Havenport truths the kind of gossip it loved most. Believable, cruel, and sprinkled with truth. I posted about Daniel. Some men can't live without admiration. Even if they have to buy it, it spread like wildfire. The next morning, he texted me. "Elena, stop this! You're making it worse," I didn't reply. He'd made me a spectacle. Now he could live under the same scrutiny. Then came Clara. Not every love story starts with honesty. Some begin with theft. Her friends turned on her within hours. In a town like Havenport, reputation is currency. And she was already bankrupt. But Mara needed something different. I wanted her downfall to feel personal, tailored, artistic. So I began my project. I called it Reflections, 12 portraits. Each one of someone in Havenport, smiling, graceful, perfectly posed. But beneath each image, I wrote their hidden sin. No names. No direct accusations. Just truth, whispered through art. She prays for forgiveness from the same mouth that spreads lies. He says he loves his wife, but his eyes always wander. They laugh at others' pain, until it's their turn to bleed. The collection went viral online before the local gallery even opened. People loved the mystery, the poetry. They called it raw and unflinching. They didn't realize they were staring at themselves. Until Mara saw hers. Her portrait was the last one. A soft image, her profile lit by golden afternoon light, the same shot I'd taken months ago. Beneath it, a single line, the face of loyalty, until envy taught her how to lie. I remember standing in the corner of the gallery as she walked in. She froze. Her face drained of color. Everyone else was admiring the art, discussing interpretations. But Mara, she knew. She turned, her eyes searching the crowd, and for a moment our gazes met. Pause. I smiled. Later that night, she called me. Her voice was trembling. "Elena, how could you do this?" I let the silence linger before answering. "You already did," I said softly. "I just framed it better," she sobbed. Actual tears this time. "I didn't mean to hurt you like that. I wanted people to see that you weren't perfect." Perfect. That's what it came down to. Jealousy disguised as justice. "Mara," I whispered. "Perfection was never the point. But honesty. That's something you never understood. Then I hung up. The next morning, the gallery was trending online. People debated the meaning behind the final portrait. Some called it a mirror held to hypocrisy. Others called it dangerous art. And for the first time, I felt something close to peace. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't begged. I'd simply shown the truth, and truth has its own kind of vengeance. That night, I walked the pier again. The same one where it all began. The same sea, the same cold wind. But this time, I didn't feel small. The whispers that once haunted me had become background noise. The stares that once burned now barely brushed against me. Because I knew something they didn't. That exposure isn't punishment when you control the narrative. I looked out at the horizon. Waves glinting like shards of glass, and whispered to the wind, "This is only the beginning." For a few days, Havenport went quiet again. Too quiet. The kind of silence that comes after a bomb goes off, when everyone's still counting the pieces. People smiled at me on the street now. Some even congratulated me. "Elena, your work is genius. So brave, so raw." They didn't realize they were applauding their own exposure. Their own rot turned into art, but in Havenport, peace never lasts long. Rumors are like tidewater. They always find a way back to shore. The backlash began small. A few anonymous posts, a few whispers in the cafe. "She's obsessed. She's dangerous. Who does she think she is, playing God?" I expected it. When people can't control you anymore, they try to control your story. Still, something about the new wave of gossip felt different, sharper, more personal. One evening, I got a message from a blocked number. "You think you're untouchable. Wait until your truth comes out." My hands went cold, because whoever sent it wasn't wrong. Everyone has something they don't want the world to see. Even me. The next morning, Mara's portrait disappeared from the gallery. Someone had taken it off the wall and left behind a note scrawled in red marker. "Art imitates sin. But sin fights back." I found out later she'd quit town, packed her things overnight and vanished. No goodbye, no closure, but I didn't celebrate. Because her leaving didn't end the whispers, it only shifted them. Now, I was the obsession, Elena Ward's cursed exhibit, Elena's demons, Elena's hidden life. Everywhere I went, I could feel it, the shift from pity to fascination to fear. That night, I came home to find my studio door slightly open. The air inside was colder than usual. And on my desk, someone had left a printout. It was one of my own photos, a self-portrait I'd taken years ago when I was just starting out. Young, hopeful, naive. But across it, in bold black ink, someone had written, "You expose everyone else. But who are you when the lens turns?" For the first time in months, I felt my heart race, not with anger, but with fear. Someone knew how to find me. Someone wanted me to feel hunted. I spent that night sitting by the window, lights off, watching the quiet street below. Havenport looked peaceful again. Too peaceful, and I realized something chilling. In my pursuit of exposing others, I'd become the town's newest secret. It's the newest rumor. And secrets have a way of feeding themselves. A few days later, the gallery called. They'd received an anonymous tip, claims that my Reflections series was fabricated, that the subjects were edited to frame innocent people. It was ridiculous, but it didn't matter. In Havenport, truth didn't need proof. It just needed a whisper. By evening, the story was everywhere. Elena Ward fakes her art. Elena's manipulated truths. I could almost hear Daniel laughing somewhere, relieved that the spotlight had shifted again. The same people who praised me for honesty were now calling me a liar. Ironic, isn't it? How quickly admiration turns to suspicion. Still, I refused to back down. I wrote a post that night. The truth doesn't disappear when you close your eyes. It waits, and when it returns, it burns brighter than before. The post went viral. Half the town defended me. The other half sharpened their claws. But beneath all the noise, I could feel it. the same presence watching, waiting, circling back. The message. The photo. The threat. Someone wanted to break me the way I'd broken them, and they were getting closer. But if they wanted a war of exposure, they'd just chosen the wrong woman to challenge. I used to think ghosts were just memories, the kind that linger in your mind when the world goes quiet. But now, I knew better, because something was haunting me. Not a spirit, but a person. A shadow that moved when I wasn't looking. Everywhere I went, I felt watched. The creak of the studio floor when I was alone. The flicker of headlights pausing outside my window. The feeling of a camera lens trained on me, and for the first time, I wasn't behind it. It started one night around midnight. I was reviewing photos for a new project, something lighter, softer, when I noticed a reflection in the corner of a shot. A faint silhouette in the glass, someone standing outside my studio window. I froze. The photo had been taken 2 days earlier. Daylight, crowds around. But that shadow, it shouldn't have been there. I zoomed in, heart pounding. The figure was blurry, but the shape was unmistakable. A man, tall, broad-shouldered, and I knew somehow. It wasn't a stranger. The next morning, I went to the cafe, the one I used to visit before everything fell apart. People still looked at me like I was made of glass, but I ignored them. Instead, I focused on the reflection in the cafe window, and there he was again. Sitting across the street, face hidden under a hood, watching. I left without finishing my coffee. Walked fast, turned corners, doubled back, but he was always there. Sometimes close enough that I could hear his footsteps echo mine. Quietly, bitter laugh. Havenport had always been small, but now it felt like a cage. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the old wooden box at the back of my closet. Inside were keepsakes, my father's watch, a photograph of my mother smiling before life hardened her, and a bundle of letters from Daniel. Back when he still pretended to love me, I read through them slowly, searching for clues. Anything that might explain who was tormenting me now. One line stood out. If people knew what you'd done for your family, they'd see you differently. My stomach tightened. What I'd done, I hadn't thought about it in years. When my father died, I took the fall for something that wasn't mine. A small fraud case, his business partner's doing. I forged documents to keep my mother out of trouble. The charges were dropped quietly, but the stain remained. Only a handful of people ever knew. My mother, Daniel, and one other, Detective Hayes, the officer who handled the case. He'd always been kind to me. Too kind. And when the case ended, he'd told me, "If you ever need help again, Elena, you know where to find me." I hadn't spoken to him in years. But now, maybe I should. The next morning, I drove to the old police station. The building looked smaller than I remembered, like time had been slowly swallowing it. Detective Hayes wasn't there. He'd retired 2 years ago. The clerk gave me his address, a cabin just outside Havenport near the cliffs. I hesitated. Something about it felt wrong, but curiosity has always been my fatal flaw. When I reached his cabin, the sky was already bruising with sunset. The air smelled of salt and pine. The front door was unlocked. Inside, everything was dust and silence. A half-finished drink on the table. A photograph of a young me clipped from an old newspaper, my first local art award. He'd kept it. Then I saw the wall, dozens of photos pinned in neat rows. Me, Daniel, Mara, Clara. Dates, notes, locations. He'd been watching all of us. And in the center of it all, a photo I'd never seen before. Me, standing on the pier the night I found out about Daniel's affair. I remember being alone that night. But in the picture, I wasn't. Behind me, half hidden by the darkness, was the same man from the reflections. My breath caught. The signature at the bottom of the photo was faint, but visible. A photographer's mark. D. Hayes. He'd never stopped watching. Not since that first case. Not since he learned my secrets. And now, he was back, recording my revenge, turning me into the story he'd been waiting for all along. That night, I left the cabin and drove home through the fog, the road twisted like a serpent beneath the headlights. If Hayes wanted to turn my life into his masterpiece, then fine. But I'd be the one to choose the ending. Fear used to paralyze me. Now, it sharpens me. I spent the next 2 days preparing, cameras hidden around the studio, motion alerts linked to my phone, every angle covered. If Detective Hayes wanted a story, I'd give him one. That night, I left the lights on and the door slightly open, just enough to invite curiosity. Then I waited in the shadows. Hours passed. Then, a faint creak. Footsteps. Hayes stepped inside, his silhouette familiar, camera raised like a weapon. He whispered to himself, "Confession always comes from silence." I stepped forward. "Then you should listen closely." The flash went off, not his, mine. Every hidden camera in the studio triggered at once, capturing him in the act. He froze. For once, the hunter had become the subject. "Smile, detective," I said. "This time, the story's mine." By morning, the footage was everywhere. News feeds, forums, even the same gossip pages that once tore me apart. Detective Hayes, exposed. A man who preyed on the very people he claimed to protect. Photos of me, Mara, Clara, and Daniel, all cataloged in his sick collection. Havenport woke up choking on its own secrets. Everyone who'd ever judged me was now scrambling to erase their names from his files. The same voices that once whispered my shame were suddenly defending me, apologizing, pleading. But forgiveness isn't something you can demand. It's something you earn. And none of them had earned it. The town that thrived on gossip had finally become the gossip. And I, the woman they tried to destroy, had become their reckoning. Havenport was burning, and I didn't lift a single match. I found Daniel at the pier, the same place where everything started. He looked smaller now, defeated. "Elena," he said, voice low, "you got what you wanted. The town's ruined. Hayes is gone. Isn't that enough? Enough?" I stepped closer, the wind tangling my hair like ghosts of our past. "You took everything from me, Daniel. My peace, my name, my dignity." I looked him straight in the eyes. "You don't get to decide what's enough." He swallowed hard. "People will never see you the same after this." "They shouldn't," I whispered. "I'm not the same." From my coat, I handed him a small envelope, a copy of the messages he'd sent to Hayes, feeding him my secrets. His face went pale. "You thought I wouldn't find out?" I said softly. This was never just his game. "It was yours too." I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard him whisper my name, but the tide swallowed it whole. After Daniel, there was only one silence left to break, the one that lived in my own home. I sat across from my mother, the woman who'd taught me to smile through pain. She looked older now, smaller, her pride crumbling like ash. "I did it to protect us," she whispered. "All those years of hiding, of pretending." I shook my head. "We didn't protect anything. We just learned to suffer quietly." She reached for my hand. "And now?" "Now," I said, "we stopped being silent." For the first time in years, the air between us felt honest, heavy, but clean. Revenge had burned the lies away. What remained was truth. Havenport finally went still. No more whispers. No more flashing cameras. I walked along the shoreline, the sea calm again, each wave washing away what remained of who I'd been. Revenge had its own rhythm, sharp, relentless. But peace. Peace was a whisper. I wasn't the same woman who once begged for truth. Now I carry it, owned it. And for the first time, the silence didn't hurt. It healed. I left Havenport at dawn, no note. No goodbye. The town would keep talking, but I no longer belonged to its noise. I drove until the ocean was behind me, and the horizon looked like forgiveness. In the mirror, I saw her, the woman who once trembled under judgment, and I smiled. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's peaceful. It's choosing silence and knowing it finally belongs to you. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this story with someone who's ever been judged for staying silent. Because sometimes, the quiet ones carry the loudest truths.